Off and running. All right. So hi, everyone. My name is Holly Craig. I work for the USDA Forest Service, and I'll be your host today. Thank you so much for participating in the Federal Interagency Military Spouses Career Expo, featuring 15 different federal agencies. Thank you for choosing this session with the Armed Forces Wellness Center. For this afternoon session, your microphone has been muted when you entered this meeting, but as the host, if you have questions when we get to the question and answer time, go ahead and raise your hand to speak or put your question in the chat. And we would love to have this be as conversational as possible when we get to that question and answer time. Your video feed is fully active, so we are able to see you as the hosts. Please use that chat feature to direct any questions, comments, or remarks you might have as you hear today's information. And like I said, we want this to be as conversational as possible. We're here for you today. If you have to drop off, no worries, life happens. You will receive a recording of this presentation as well as any of the files and materials that are presented today. If we're able to drop them in the chat, we will. Otherwise, you will receive an email of them as they are available. So with that, I would love to turn it over to my colleague, Nicole Lape of the Armed Forces Wellness Center. Over to you, Nicole.
Is that
Nicole? I think you're muted. There you go.
Okay, there we go. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Nicole Leth. I'm the director of the Fort Belvoir Armed Forces Wellness Center. And I'm just going to give you a little preview here of our what's in our lineup. And unique to our organization today, as organization that supports military spouse wellness, we want to give you a little bit of that today. And so if your engagement today, and bless y'all, I know if you've been online since this morning, we don't want you to get too Zoom fatigue today. But I want to nourish your souls a little bit. But then if you are specifically interested in career opportunities, not only with the Wellness Center, but then with public health in general, the 1:45 p.m. session might be your jam. But I would love to keep you. So please do stay for this session on managing stress. But if that's specific to you and you want to bounce to another organization and then come back at 1:45, my feelings won't be hurt, I understand. I want you to be good stewards of time management, which is an effective measure of stress management. So this just kind of gives you a lineup of what we're doing today. And so in this session right now, I'm just going to pop to my other slides here. Forgive me. There we go. And let me put this in full screen. Perfect. So there are 35 wellness centers. The majority of them branded Army Wellness Centers because they're located on installations that are predominantly Army. Here in the National Capital Region, Fort Belvoir is a very joint installation, and so we're branded an Armed Forces Wellness Center. But across all 35 centers, both stateside and overseas, all of our services are standardized, and that includes our classes. And so you're getting good academic evidence-based information in our classes. And then the services are also standardized. So as a military spouse with our frequent moves, and you might find yourself on another installation, odds are, especially if you're Army, you'll probably have access to a wellness center. And what's exciting, and Dr. Jarka and Dr. Santo will cover this in the next presentation, is that with the Wellness Center Enterprise moving to Defense Health Agency, which is our joint healthcare platform right now, you're going to see these wellness centers proliferate across the joint force. And so that's super exciting. They'll talk a little bit more about that next. But just know that these classes are something that we offer across the enterprise. So I'm just, and I get real excited when I teach y'all. So I talk with my hands, I get real excited. So normally this class would be like an hour. And so I'm going to have to mind myself and my time to just do this in 30 minutes because I do want to leave opportunity for questions at the end of this. And so we're just going to go over some basics. And I always like to say with our Wellness Center classes that some of you all, especially in this dynamic of today's Career Expo, is that a lot of you probably have background in this, right? Either education, experience, or both. And so what I always like to say is our classes are never meant to insult anybody's intelligence or anything like that. But when it comes to our personal health goals, sometimes we just need to re-engage, right? Or we might need a different perspective. And that's what I love about my peers in this field, is that they offer that difference of perspective and maybe approaching something in a different way. So I hope I can do that for you today. In addition to talking about the services that we offer for stress management, education, and biofeedback at our wellness centers. This is my only glory photo. Some of you as military spouses may yourselves have served at some point, and you probably have these fantastic photos of yourself in uniform. This is my only one. So I met my soldier 17 years ago. He's still on active duty, and we move a lot, right? So we have these hard hustles for work. So my undergrad pre-med, moved to Hawaii, meet my soldier. And so I needed a portable career. So I got my EMT and then my paramedic license. So I've worked as a paramedic, Hawaii, Texas, and New York. So I've done very rural EMS, very urban EMS. And it was during that time that I was like, oh, bless, how do we keep people out of the back of an ambulance? So that's what led me into prevention. And so my master's degree is in public health and nutrition. So I'm not a registered dietitian. I can't give prescriptive dietary guidance, but I can absolutely, support a deep dive into nutrition related areas along with wellness in general. And so again, milspos, we have a hard hustle. So I've worked in private physician practice, teaching for university systems. I still teach for the University of Georgia system. I teach undergraduate public health and nutrition. So I feel you as a fellow military spouse that it is hard with employment. We all hustle really hard, and therefore we really need some good stress management techniques. And that's why I'm so passionate about this topic in particular. And so typically when we talk about stress and we hear that word, right, and I usually pose this question to the class and then or our attendees and ask them to throw out one word responses, right? And some people, the most common response I get is anxiety when they hear the word stress. Some of it might be schedules, work. Some people say marriage. Some people say kids, right? But typically when we hear that word stress, it usually has kind of a negative connotation, right? And when we're talking about stress in that context, we're talking about distress. Well, there is a such thing as eustress, right? So that's positive stress. Those of us who are procrastinators, we know this is like motivation, right? we go. But when I teach this stress management class, the way I want to frame this discussion is around condition setting. And for a lot of us and all the different topic areas that we hit on in here as they relate to stress, it really is about the conditions that we set, either for weeks prior, years prior, the day prior, right? That allow us, because we know life is going to throw us barriers, challenges, some of them minor, some pretty intense and heavy. Right? We know that life is going to do that. And so the conditions that we set on a regular basis allow us to handle those barriers and stressors in a more effective way where it doesn't bring us to our knees, right? And let me also preface this with, again, as a fellow military spouse, I've had such good battle buddies. And I would never say to, and we're going to be vulnerable in here today with each other, right? And I have a very good friend, my longest military spouse battle buddy, and they lost their sweet 14-year-old son to suicide 2 years ago. And I would never look at my battle buddy, this spouse, I would never look at her and say, if you just ate better and you slept and you got some exercise, it'll be okay. No, ma'am. No, sir. She's going to ache and hurt the rest of her life. Okay, so I am not trying to minimize some of those stressors and barriers and challenges that we face in our life. Some of them are incredibly intense and heavy. But what I will say is that if we do nourish our bodies and we prioritize rest and managing our stress and hydrating and getting some type of movement in, makes it easier to get out of bed the next day. That's all I'm saying. So we have to work on setting these good conditions and being very deliberate and intentional in that condition setting so we can better face them, okay? Alrighty, I think a lot of us, when we talk about stress manifesting, we think about it in the more mental cognitive aspect, and we really don't maybe give full attention on the impact that it has on our physiology and us physically, right? And we physically hold stress in our bodies. There's a great book. It's called Burnout, Unlocking the Stress Cycle. I will preface it by saying that it is gender normative towards females, but the tenets that are in there and the research that was done is applicable to all humans. And what I love about in that book is that these two researchers in their doctoral work came to very similar conclusions while they were moving through this. One's a neurobiological researcher, which makes sense. One studied music theory, and they came to these similar conclusions, which is what led to this book being written. But what they talk about is that stress and emotions being like a tunnel, and there's a beginning of the tunnel, we enter the tunnel, and then hopefully we exit the tunnel. The problem is a lot of us get stuck in the tunnel, right? And so even if the acute stressor is gone, let's say it's a financial stressor, and that financial stressor is alleviated, but you know something's not right in your body. It could be an ache, it could be a rash. You hold on to that stress physically. And what they found in their research was that the number one way to complete the emotion, to break the stress cycle, to exit the tunnel was with physical activity. And don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not talking about going to kill it at the gym for 2 hours, okay? But I'm talking about the beauty of a walk, stretching, practicing some yoga. That simple movement, right, is what can help us release some of this emotion and release the way we physically hold stress in our body. And when we look at this image here, we know, and what's so fascinating about our bodies is that, let's say a grizzly bear walks in the room right now. We know that our heart rate is going to go up, our respirations are going to go up, our body is going to shunt blood flow away from our GI system. It's going to go to our extremities, our heart, lung, brains, because we got to get away from the grizzly bear. What's interesting is that your body doesn't know the difference between the grizzly bear and the annoying coworker, right? You're going to react the same way. Your respirations are going to go up, your heart rate's going to increase. And so we engage the sympathetic nervous system in those moments. And what we're looking at here are the impact of sympathetic nervous system engagement. And think about how many times that happens for us in a day. It could be traffic. It could be trying to get the kids out the door to school. It could be that your spouse comes home with an RFO for a request for orders for Korea, which is what happened in my case. And I looked at him and I was like, you going alone, boo. I went, don't worry, but I had my moment, right? Like we usually do as military spouses, like give me some grace for a few days. I'll rally. Your muscles become tense, right? When you're faced with those stressors, right? You might hold a knot in a certain part of your body. I always get one at the base of my neck, right? What's interesting with our GI system is that with an acute stressor, we typically lose our appetite, right? But with chronic stress, what do a lot of us do? We eat, right? We'll talk about that in a minute. Blood vessels, fascinating, right? Our veins and arteries are beautifully designed to be elastic, right? To ebb and flow with increases and decreases in pressure. With regular systemic or with regular sympathetic nervous system engagement, right? We get those increases in blood pressure every time we do that, right? And with repetitive increases in pressure, those beautifully elastic veins and arteries, they start to get hard. And then some of us also struggle with maybe higher cholesterol, right? So we might have plaque buildup in those veins and arteries. So what's interesting is that, like me as a paramedic, I worked in a lot of fire stations, and bless our fire service personnel, I love them, but the majority of the time, they're not the healthiest bunch, right? And so the leading cause of death among fire service personnel is cardiovascular disease, it's heart disease, right? It's not on the job fighting fire. And it's because, right, certain lifestyle choices, daily stressors, veins and arteries getting hard, maybe partially blocked, and now the 911 call goes up, right? And so you've got this firefighter who jumps up, putting on a bunch of heavy gear, and now we're going to shove a bunch of fluid through a hardened, partially blocked pipe. That's a stroke or heart attack waiting to happen. And I don't think we think about that daily impact of stress, sympathetic nervous system engagement, especially on our blood vessels. That's a doozy, okay? So being mindful of that physical manifestation of stress in our body and that deteriorating impact over time that has, if for no other reason, this is a great one to try to manage our stress and get it under control, right? Okay, so when we look at this on this wheel, and stress literally touches on every facet, right, of our wellness, everything from, physical activity, which we talked a little bit about, that being a great way to release those stressors, right? But we don't feel called to do that at the end of a long, stressful week, right? You get done on a Friday and you don't feel like going for a run. You want to lay on the couch with a blankie, some lickies and chewies, and a good show, because we're human. That's what we're called to do. But we know that movement can help us feel better. If you've ever gone for a walk or a run and it feels like the good idea fairy went with you, right? And you come back, full of vigor, and you're like, oh, I got all these good ideas and I just figured out how to save the world and all this stuff. My boss, bless him, who's on the net right now, a lot of my good idea fairies ideas come to him in the morning. I'm like, I thought about this on my run today. And so that's all those good endorphins, right? That dopamine, getting it flowing, right? We feel better when we engage in movement, and it is a way to complete the stress cycle, complete emotions. I love my marriage counselor. I wouldn't be married to my soldier this long without her, bless her heart. But she encourages us, especially if we have to have a difficult conversation, to go for a walk, right? Because when you go for a walk with somebody, you're shoulder to shoulder, you're side by side. Sometimes eye contact can feel adversarial, right? So shoulder to shoulder, and then that movement helping you process emotion. For those of you that might have to have a difficult conversation, whether your current professional role or with your family or friends, that's a great way to do that. Little tip trick there. With nutrition, and we've got Joanna Reagan, who will be coming up in our third segment. She's a fantastic public health registered dietitian. She's phenomenal. She's been in this field for a long time. So she'll do more of a deeper dive into healthy fueling. But when we talk about nutrition as it relates to stress, this is not like a faux background. This is actually a mural in our wellness center here. And it's very intentional because every class that we teach here, whether it's sleep, stress, fueling, physical activity, this is relevant, right? And especially when it comes to stress, like all these beautiful phytochemicals, antioxidants from our fresh fruits and veggies. Carbs aren't bad, y'all. They're not bad. Carbs are good, okay? All your fruits and vegetables, carbohydrates, okay? And we need those phytochemicals and antioxidants. We need that fiber. Because when we're chronically stressed out, your body is inflamed. You can pull labs on that. You can check your cortisol levels, right? And for a lot of us, especially if we're not sleeping well and we're stressed out, our body's inflamed, right? It's on fire systemically. We want inflammation on an acute injury, broken bone, laceration, inflammation, yes, please, because that's going to help healing. We don't want our body to run inflamed 365, okay? So all of these beautiful foods that are pictured here, right? That's like water on the fire, okay? Sugar, fat, salt is what we crave when we're stressed. That's like kerosene. And I'm not here to be a joy thief. I'm not going to steal your joy, okay? If somebody took away my wine and cheese, I would cry, okay? But what I am saying is that we just need those foods that are water promoting, right? Like phytochemicals, antioxidants, and just a little bit less of the kerosene, right? We just want to flip the ratio. And that does help with nutrition. And I'll quick share a story. My dad's struggling with a cancer diagnosis, and I had to fly home on emergency leave this summer. And I got home and I landed late. My mom took me to the hospital, and then we drove home. And y'all, my mom, Kathy's a good time. You want to go have drinks with Kathy. She's fun, right? And I really, when we got back to the house, all I wanted to do was have some wine with my mom, right? We're under all this stress, right? Dad's sick. And I was like, Nicole, this is your moment. This is your moment to practice what you preach, because I knew what mom and I needed was a glass of water and to go to bed. Okay. But what I wanted to do was sit up and drink wine with Kathy. Okay. And you know what? I had to really lean into it, but I was like, Mom, we're drinking water. We're going to bed because we got another stressful day tomorrow. So I'm not saying this is easy to do, but if we really are intentional and deliberate with some of these things, it does make it easier to deal with those stressors and challenges the next day. Okay. And nutrition is absolutely one of those, but we have to be every moment be intentional. Okay. Personal development. Our military spouses have a hard hustle. Y'all might be working one job, your household six, taking care of everything going on the home front, right? Because your service member's super busy. And then, oh, you might log into a class at night. Bless y'all. Okay. And so, but personal development is going to take a hit, because the last thing you want to do is log into a discussion board after a crazy long day and everybody is finally in bed, right? So that can take a hit, right? Physical surroundings. The things I have seen, y'all, as a paramedic, when people are sick, they are stressed out, they're living in poverty, they're struggling with addiction and mental illness. That is a lot of stress. And the first thing to go is you're not doing the dishes, okay? You're not picking the stuff up off the floor, right? So physical surroundings are really impacted when we're stressed out, because it's like you just don't have the bandwidth for it. But if you're rested, fueled, hydrated, you know what? You'll do the dishes, you'll fold the clothes and even put them in the drawer, right? So just being mindful, like all these facets of our life that are impacted by stress. Emotions, we've talked about that a lot. We just don't have bandwidth, right? Spirituality takes a hit when we're stressed out, right? And this doesn't even have to be faith-based. It's just a sense of purpose and belonging in the world, right? That becomes impacted when we're stressed out. And you may have personally experienced this or witnessed this in a loved one, but they kind of just they're like, what's the point, right? When you're just feeling that low and burdened by stress, it's hard to see that purpose and belonging. Family and social is a big one, y'all. The blue zones, I love that concept. Y'all are probably very familiar with it. If not, look it up. They do a longevity quiz on there. It might blow your hair back a little bit. But what I love about the blue zones, which looks at these pockets around the globe that have the largest amount of living centurions, so people who live over 100 and not live over 100 on a tube feed and a ventilator, right? But like are healthfully moving about, high cognitive functioning, right? It's like, what's the magic? What's the secret sauce? And it's all these things that we're looking at right here, okay? Family and social is a big one. We are humans. We are pack creatures. We have to have human connection. And this isn't introvert versus extrovert. This is human connection in our life. It literally impacts your physical health. But the problem is we let things fly out of our mouth when we're stressed out, right? And then sometimes you say those things and you can't take them back. You're like, oh, come back, right? And you can't. And sometimes you can irreversibly damage a relationship with a loved one. You might lose a job. Okay, so we've got to mind our stress so that we can keep these humans in our life, right? Very important to physical health. Sleep is a big one. We do a whole class in the wellness centers on sleep hygiene. It's that important, okay? There is fascinating new sleep research out there. I'm not going to go too deep into it because there's so many things we could talk about as it relates to sleep, and I want to make sure I leave time for Q&A. Just the real quick, bedroom, cool, calm, dark. It's your sanctuary. Okay. Don't care if the rest of your house is a dumpster fire, pick up your bedroom. Okay. Cool, calm, dark. It shouldn't be a daycare center. Should not be a drive-in movie theater. Don't be eating in your bed, y'all. Don't be eating in bed. Okay. You don't want to train those neural pathways to associate your bed with work, eating, whatever else is going on there. Okay. Bed, sleep, and sex only. That's it. All those other activities we got to prioritize outside of that space. Otherwise, you just confuse your body. Okay. TVs and gaming systems in the bedroom, be careful because it's not just blue light, it's also content. Don't engage your sympathetic nervous system before bed. Okay. You're watching some serial killer drama. Don't do that. Okay. Stuff's going to haunt your brain. So be protective of that sleep space, right? Back off, exercise, eating, alcohol consumption 2 to 3 hours before bed, build a cushion, drink your water, you'll thank me later. Alcohol is a depressant, makes you feel all sleepy cozy. It will wake you back up in the middle of the night, drinking it too close to bed because of the way your body metabolizes alcohol. Just be careful of that, okay? All right, this is my caution cone slide. Don't be afraid to put out your caution cones. If you are moving into that yellow, orange, heaven forbid, red continuum, right? Put yourself in timeout. It is a perfectly fine thing to do. Let the other humans in your life know. Just say, hey, you don't have to elaborate. You don't have to tell your whole story. Just say, listen, I'm having a morning. I'm having a morning. Imagine doing this for your coworkers. You come in blazing hot, on fire, right? Or your family, right? Just on fire, right? And you don't say anything. What are they all going to start to think? They're going to start to tell themselves a story in their head. Oh, he or she's mad at me because I didn't do this and they didn't do that. And they might even start to have an argument with you in their head and nobody has spoken a word. Versus if you come in and say, listen, I've had a rough morning. I've had a day. I'm going to go time out real quick. I'm going to take a moment. It's not you, it's me. I'll be back. Now you can't put yourself in timeout all day, every day, but please consider that when you feel that temperature gauge going up, just time out. Okay. And then come back once you've practiced some of these techniques we're going to discuss, right? That's a great way to save human connection in your life. Okay. Some of the things that we do in the wellness centers, we have these individual stress management training rooms. They're great. We have bougie massage chairs, and then we do biofeedback, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. And then along with that biofeedback, we practice meditation, guided imagery. Guided imagery is what sleep stories are. If you use an app with sleep stories, that's what that is. It's amazing. Some of you might have engaged in progressive muscle relaxation. That's where you're coached from head to toe to tense and then relax your muscles. That's a beautiful way to just kind of bring yourself to center. Deep breathing is so impactful. I can't talk about it enough. We use heart math technology here in the wellness centers, which measure heart rate variability. You might have seen your HRV, heart rate variability tracking with your wearable devices that you use, and it'll track, that's how it typically tracks your sleep patterns, right? Your engagement in deep, light, and REM sleep. And that's what the heart math does. And I'm going to show you what that looks like on a screen. But this is one of the things we talk about in those biofeedback sessions. And how do we move from depletion to renewal, right? How do we stop engaging that sympathetic nervous system and getting that cortisol dump, right? And how do we move ourselves into coherence? So if we want to rid ourselves of some frustration and resentment, right? And we want to move into a space of more love and appreciation, those are something that we can intentionally engage and lean into. It's not magic, okay? It doesn't just poof happen. We have to be intentional. And those are some of the things we teach you here at the Wellness Center. So we hook you up, little clip on the ear or on your finger. We're going to track your heart rate variability. And what we're looking at there is that peak is the heart contracting, and then that valley is the spacing in between each contraction of the heart. And when that's off, even by a nanosecond, that's where we're engaging in more sympathetic nervous system engagement, that part of the autonomic nervous system that's like your fight or flight, right? What we want to teach you with deep breathing is how to engage more of your parasympathetic. Okay, that's a bottom-up approach. So if we can coach ourselves into taking those deep breaths, right? Those breaths start to control that heart rate variability, and you literally have a neural pathway from your heart to your brain, and it can quiet down all that noise in there, all of those thought spirals we find ourselves in, right? And through that deep breath, we move into more parasympathetic engagement. And then we track those coherence scores, which are the numbers that you're seeing there on the screen. We want to move you more into the green. We want to see those numbers increase. And we track those over sessions. It takes time to learn this. This isn't an overnight process, right? And so, I got 2 minutes, beautiful. Because we're going to do a little breathing exercise together before we go to Q&A. We love to talk about apps at the Wellness Center. We're not selling anything, right? But I'll talk with you about the apps that are out there, pros, cons, right? And then you go forth and make a good, educated decision. I personally use the Calm app a lot. My daughter struggles with anxiety. And so that's a great way for us to meditate together, or for me to put on a sleep story with her. That's really effective. But there's so many great apps out there, okay? And a lot of them have a free version. You don't need to pay, okay? But these are some of the fun ones that are out there. Headspace, 10% Happier, Mindful, Calm, they're all great. And we're happy to talk about those with you. These are some of the services we offer. Dr. Jarka and Dr. Santo are going to go into a little bit more depth, but holy cow, do we do a lot of the things. And if we don't offer it, we are a great community partner with the other resources that are out there, and we will get you to the right place, okay? We're very mindful of our scope of practice. And so again, especially when it comes to nutrition, we don't do anything prescriptive. We just kind of paint with a broad brush. If you need something more detailed, we're probably going to refer you to our dietitians at the treatment facility. But we do sleep education. We talk about weight management, metabolic testing. We're all required to be certified personal trainers. So we can do exercise prescription. We have the fun bod pods that look like the Mork and Mindy egg for those of you that are old like me and you know that reference. We do VO2 testing, so fitness testing here. Phenomenal. Okay, so lots of fun stuff. So what we're going to do real quick, and I know it's hard to go from me being so amped up and then we're like going to breathe, but I'm going to ask that of you. Okay. All righty. So what I want you to do is to close your eyes. Okay, just close your eyes, get cozy. And what I want you to do is focus your attention in the area of the heart. Just go with me on this one. Okay. I want you to imagine your breath flowing in and out of your heart or chest area. I want you to breathe a little slower and a little deeper than usual. I want you to find a rhythm that's easy and comfortable. And then I want you to focus on an attitude that you might want to let go of. So if we're wrestling with frustration, I want you to release that through your out breath, and on your in breath, I want you to focus on positivity, on hopefulness, right? If we're wrestling with anger, I want you to breathe in peace, okay? And then I want you to take one more deep breath in for me. And then release that breath. Okay, y'all are amazing. Look at that. So we still have a few minutes left here for Q&A. So I would love to answer any questions. And I have some other peers on the net here that if I can't answer it, they can jump right in.
All right. Thank you so much. I loved that guided breathing. That was amazing, Nicole. So as participants of the meeting, you are able to turn on your cameras. Like we said in the opening, we'd love for this just to be conversational. We're just all human beings in the room here today with all of our stuff, whatever that looks like. So we've got some questions in the chat and we can go ahead and start with those. But also in the bottom of your toolbar, if you find the button that says reactions and click on it or hover over it, there should be an option that says raise hand. And if you'd like to come on camera or ask your question verbally, we'd love that. So feel free to raise your hand and I will then go in and allow you to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question directly. So let's go ahead and get started as folks are figuring out the raised hands, and I'll go ahead and get started with a question that came in. And this one was from Savannah. It says, how does the Wellness Center support mental health / suicide awareness related to military installations?
Ooh, that's a good one. And in fact, we've had Sergeant Major of the Army come in here and talk about wellness and stress management. He's a great advocate. And one of the things I asked him when we had General McConville come here for an official visit, I said, you know, SMA, what are some of the things we can focus on for this visit? And he said, you know what? I really want you to focus on your role as it relates to stress management and suicide prevention, and you just being one of those many resources that kind of bring that warm embrace and hug around in that prevention space. And so a story I usually share is that we had a really hard charging team here in the National Capital Region call, and they had a teammate that was struggling. And they said, listen, we got them into behavioral health, so we're going to go to the hospital and do that visit. But then immediately after that, we want to come to the wellness center. And so they came in here, and this was a hard charging uniformed individual. And we got him in the chair and they were crying and they voiced embarrassment and frustration for even being here. And I said, listen, this is the bravest thing you've ever done, right? It's the bravest thing you ever did. You probably saved your life. You saved your marriage. You kept a father for your children. This is the bravest thing. So we sat there, we just worked through some emotion. We did some deep breathing. We brought ourselves into a more of a state of coherence. And he left feeling a lot better. So between those combined appointments, then with future appointments, you go behavioral health and come here. It's really a beautiful complement to that, right? And it's an honor to be a part of that care that we can really just fully wrap our arms around some of our service members and spouses so that they can feel that comprehensive care. And just that little bit of deep breathing and engagement and pause can be incredibly impactful. And then how we feed and move our bodies is also intensely personal, right? So our appointments are kept at a certain length because we need time with people. And that's very intentional across all of our centers. It takes time. You all know in the wellness space, regardless of what capacity you maybe currently work in, you got to take time with people, right? Build that bond, build that trust, and then understand how you can best support them.
All right, great answer. We'll go ahead and move on to our next one. This was from Rachel, and she's a licensed paramedic in Michigan and is headed to South Carolina. And I think your story resonates with hers of also being an EMT. So can you speak a little bit to what career fields you were able to get through with that EMT paramedic licensure into your federal experience?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, and when I was in the moment with my employment, to me, it looked like a hot mess as I was moving through it. I'm like, this feels so disjointed. Where's the connection here? How is this going to move me towards a future goal? And now where I'm at and looking back at it, it was all such a perfect complement. I'm not discounting when it feels like the hot mess. It might just feel that way to you right now, or maybe it did in the past, right? But what I love about this journey is that now all of those little bits and pieces have come together, and I'm a better health coach and health educator, knowing what I lived and saw as a paramedic, right? And then wanting to lean more into that prevention space. And so all of those different jobs and experiences built on each other to get me to a point that it really gives a better picture of prevention through that lived experience. And so for me, moving from acute care into a public health space and then focusing on prevention, that was a really nice progression. And so whether for me, it was a master's degree in public health and nutrition, it could be that you go get your registered dietitian, nutritionist certification and licensure, which I've had friends who've done that. It could be that you go for more of an advanced degree in physical, right? So in kinesiology or training in that field. But they all, as we saw today, right? All of those things come together. Maybe it's social work, right? And so they all kind of come into that wheel. That's part of that health and wellness continuum. And so I think, especially that acute care, whether it's nursing, emergency services, they kind of build and move you towards that. If you're feeling more of a call to in the prevention space versus, acute care.
Okay, perfect. And please let us know if that doesn't quite answer your question or you're looking for something a little bit different. Feel free to drop that in the chat and we'll just keep the conversation going. We do have a raised hand. So Savannah, I'm going to go ahead and give you unmute ability and go ahead and just keep your video on and ask your question. Give me just a minute to do that. Okay, you should be able to unmute.
Great. Hi, it's wonderful to meet all of you. I just had a follow-up question to the question that I had asked before. So I guess I'm kind of new to the idea of a wellness center versus behavioral health. Just so that I can understand, the wellness center focuses more on the physical aspect of mental health, is that correct? And how the body manifests physical, such as nutrition and like weight management and exercise. Versus, it all being psychological and mental. Is that correct?
Correct. Right. And I hope I stated this enough, and I'll just say it again too. We are very careful with our scope of practice here, right? And especially if we have a client with us who starts to disclose, something that is out of our scope of practice, right? And then we consider that our responsibility to be good community and installation partners. So if somebody does start talking about something, and maybe it's a financial stressor that's causing problems in the marriage, right? It's like, hey, do you know about this program over here and this resource? Can I walk you over there? Or can I give you this contact information? I'd be happy to make that connection for you, right? And especially when it comes to behavioral health, if they start to disclose anything that needs higher level support, then we know where to refer them, not only to our own behavioral health team, but maybe they need a military family life consultant, right? We can give them that connection info. Like I said, finances tend to be a real stressor, whether it's food insecurity. We've heard about that a lot as military spouses and military family members. So just knowing where those resources are and how to connect them. And sometimes people just need to they just need a soft place to land, right? And just kind of let it out and just talk about whatever it is, right? But again, we'll connect them to those resources, mindful of our scope of practice, but we like that we're kind of that soft, safe space for people to enter. And then we can gently, coach them into those other resources. I hope that answered the question, Savannah. I feel like I go on a tangent sometimes, but yeah, I mean, it's more the physical that we focus on here, right? And that's where part of that mental health aspect, when we talk about biofeedback and when people can see the impact of their breathing on their heart rate variability and then how they feel after doing that, that can just be that's a game changer.
All right. So Savannah, I think you've got follow-ups and feel free to chat with Nicole one-on-one, but we are going to pivot to kind of wrapping this one up and giving people a chance for a bio break before we pivot to our next session, which opens at 1:45. So don't let that stop your conversation. We're just
Savannah, I'd love to talk with you. So
yeah, perfect. Pivot just a little bit more. So Nicole, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you for just kind of your wrap up, and then we will feel free to, if you're have everything you want to hear about the Armed Forces Wellness Center, feel free to go back and choose another diverse option, another breakout room, if you will, from the list of opportunities. You can also stick with us, and we're going to get into more information and a more in-depth discussion with folks from the Wellness Center about other options that they have and the opportunities there. So with that, Nicole, any quick thing you want to say before we go to break?
No, it's an honor to be here with all of you today. It really is. Just as a fellow military spouse to you all, I appreciate you all. I see you. I know your hard hustle. And just, yeah, we're all in this together. So it's so good to have everybody here, and just that's really good, positive, uplifting energy. So you can see here at 1:45 is when Dr. Jarka, who's our chief for the Wellness Center Enterprise, and then Dr. Santo with our public health team will come in, and they'll talk about more of this as an organization and then career opportunities.
Perfect. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Stay connected to this session if you would like to hear those upcoming presentations from folks from the Wellness Center, as well as career opportunities here. Please go take your bio breaks, reset, step outside, get some vitamin D, sunshine on your face if that's your weather today. And we'll see everybody back here at 1:45. Thank you so much. All right. Welcome, everybody. We are going to go ahead and get started again. with our next presentation from the good folks at the Armed Forces Wellness Center. So with that, I will go ahead and kick it back over to you, Nicole, to introduce our next speakers and what we're going to be doing in this next segment together. So over to you.
Yes, team. Okay, so welcome everybody. This will be an exciting presentation. So we have Dr. Michael Jarka. He's our chief for the Army Armed Forces Wellness Center Enterprise. And then we also have the honor of having Dr. Teresa Santo with us with U.S. Army Public Health Center. She's a phenomenal researcher and analyst. And so between the two of them, you're going to get a really nice complement here of what it looks like for employment with not only the Wellness Center enterprise, but then also with public health. So I will turn it over to you all.
Thank you, Nicole. Just a quick comms check. Can everyone hear me?
We can. You're good to go, Michael.
Perfect. Thank you. Are you able to see me? I'm not able to see myself, but I'm just hoping that I'm there somewhere.
Yes, you are. We can see you and Dr. Santo as well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right, so I'll do my little intro, and I'll definitely end up talking a lot at the forward. So I'll make sure that I'll turn it over to Teresa in a moment to intro herself. So I'm Dr. Michael Jarka. As you heard Nicole introduce me, I'm the chief for Armed Forces Wellness Center operations. And so I function as essentially the program manager for those who you are familiar with other sort of federal agencies of how we do program management across the government. I have a big background in health and wellness, so this is right up my alley. We'll get into that as I sort of start through everything else. But Teresa, I'll give you the opportunity to introduce yourself.
Hi, yes, thanks, Michael. And can you hear me as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, wonderful. And hopefully others can see me as well. So same thing, I can't see myself. So yes, I'm Dr. Teresa Santo. I am the Chief for Public Health Assessment within DHA Public Health, DHA being Defense Health Agency. And really our mission within my division is to bring evidence to military health promotion. And so we do in a multitude of ways, things like conducting literature reviews, writing reports, collecting and analyzing data, making recommendations, all really with the ultimate desire to make sure that our service members, our military spouses, and your families are exposed to the best possible programs, services, and practice across the military. So I'm really excited to have the opportunity to meet with you today and share some of the opportunities that we have for work within our division and public health within the military. Thanks.
Thanks, Teresa. Yep, perfect. You're already on it. So really, I want to leave this slide up, but I want to kind of start by talking about some carryovers from the previous discussion. As you all obviously were a part of, if you were a part of that, if not, obviously it'll be available. But the previous session was a stress management class. It's one of our standardized classes that's provided at all 35 Armed Forces Wellness Centers. And as Nicole mentioned earlier, we call them either Army or Armed Forces Wellness Centers, depending on their location and the population that they serve. But to answer some of the questions that came through regarding sort of where do the wellness centers fit in the triage of care, if you will, through behavioral health, through physical health, maybe more acute symptoms, et cetera, I really think and envision the wellness centers as sort of that tip of the spear, if you want to use a real military analogy, but it's the starting point for many people on their journey towards being more healthy, more holistically well. And oftentimes that begins with just a simple appointment to see, you know what, I'm starting to gain some weight, and I really want to utilize this service to get that under control. And through the process of opening up through health education and talking with people, just as you all know, you start to see that certain things are maybe causing that, or you start to break into other problems. As Nicole often says, you peel back the onion and you find that there's all these other underlying things that can lead to your perhaps particular health issue that you're undergoing. With regards to mental health, I really think that the access to mental health care and behavioral health within the wellness centers, where we lie is really within attempting to break the stigma of access to helpful and mental health, behavioral health type services. So we aren't going to provide, comprehensive psychological care, but we are going to provide health education and be able to be an ear for you to talk to and sort of work through some of those issues, and then properly refer out to the professionals within the community. So for those individuals who see themselves as sort of a jack of all trades, which I know many of us are in this field, that's essentially where the wellness center sits. It sits at the very beginning of all of these potential sort of treatment paths that people can go down. Should they need to see a specialist for this? Should they need to see, actually go see targeted behavioral health, et cetera? So I wanted to sort of bridge that gap a little bit. And I'll give you a little bit of a background on myself before I get into this, because my journey, much like Nicole's journey and much like Dr. Santo's journey, we all find our way into these particular career fields relatively in a unique manner. So my background is exercise science. My bachelor's degree was exercise science. And for the entirety of my 4 years of undergrad, I was convinced I was going to be a physical therapist. Now, I'm sure many of you are either on the same track, perhaps you're physical therapists, perhaps you also thought at one point you were going to go down that path. I knew that with an aging population, the trends are that physical therapy is going to skyrocket. There's going to be a huge career growth like crazy. Well, during my 4 years of undergrad, the ability to graduate with a master's degree in physical therapy and begin to practice disappeared, and it turned into a doctorate only. And so I suddenly had this sort of, oh my gosh, wait, I wasn't necessarily considering going to get my doctorate, but now I have to get my doctorate. And I had this crisis of conscience, and I noticed a lot of my other exercise science professionals did too. And so I started examining what else is out there. What else can I do with this degree? I know that, we can be trainers, we can be strength and conditioning coaches, athletic trainers, all of these other fields. But I wanted to try to get into that prevention a little bit more on the medical side. And I didn't really know how I was going to do it. So, of course, in keeping with tradition of not knowing what to do, you go and you get your master's degree, right? So you just put more schooling under your belt. So I went and I got my master's degree in exercise physiology, because I thought, okay, you know what? I can apply this in maybe a laboratory setting, maybe be a cardiac rehabilitation specialist, or, perhaps work with individuals who had been recently injured in some sort of cardiovascular manner. Well, through that, the time I spent with my master's, the workplace wellness sort of industry just exploded. And suddenly you had companies like Amazon creating workplace wellness things for their employees. I ended up getting a job with Thermo Fisher Scientific, which some of you may be familiar with. They do tons and tons of regulatory science. They do cancer research, all sorts of things. If you've ever been in a science lab, you've used their beakers, you've used the glasses, you've used reagents, etc. So Thermo Fisher was interested in a wellness program for their employees. They are a health science company after all. And so I helped sort of formulate what that idea might look like with Thermo Fisher Scientific. And I realized, oh my gosh, I have a passion for this workplace wellness idea. Now, how do I make that even more of a reality? How do I become an expert in that? Now, for me personally, that did involve me going back for my doctorate in health and human performance. That's not necessarily, of course, how the path goes for everybody. It just happened to be where my path led me. So I went through the doctorate in health and human performance, really focusing in on this workplace wellness and understanding, how do we bring wellness to where people are? How do we bring wellness to the community and embed it where it's easily accessible and it's something that everyone can understand, and it's basic. So I started through, working on my dissertation on figuring and kind of going down that avenue. And I knew that I wanted more. I wanted to do more. I wanted to do more within health and wellness. And I saw all the time when I was applying for jobs, Army Wellness Center, Army Wellness Center. And it was this program that was modeled after workplace wellness within the military setting. And so I just saw tons and tons, and I was coming from the outside. I was coming from the civilian side. And so, I had only heard the rumors of, oh my goodness, federal employment is difficult to, difficult to get into, et cetera, et cetera. Well, to speak to, again, if you have an exercise science degree, if you have this allied health background, to speak to your flexibility, and Teresa, Dr. Santo will speak to this in a little. I actually ended up working under Dr. Teresa Santo. She was my intro into the federal government as a public health program evaluator. And so I wasn't necessarily in there to do something specifically workplace wellness. I was there to evaluate, utilizing my skills with, statistical analyses, my skills with communicating, translating, scientific findings, et cetera, which I was very satisfied with. That was a unique twist on my degree, and I was able to move into that space. Next thing I knew, I was able to move laterally over into the chief position for the Army Wellness Center. So found my sort of really roundabout way into where I am now. And so, for all of that to say, there's so much right now, so much of a discussion about exercise science degrees and career fields in health and wellness. And, where do we go if we don't want to be an athletic trainer in a high school? Where do we go if we don't want to be a PT necessarily, or we don't want to get our doctorate? Do we have to be forced to get a doctorate in order to practice what we originally loved? I see this field evolving every single day. And you got to hear from an expert industry professional in Nicole Leth, if you heard her presentation. And she is, one of 35 directors around the globe for an Army Wellness Center. And you heard from her background, she came from a different place as well. So I find health and wellness in this general career field, to include public health, really a great place to exercise some of your maybe hidden talents that you didn't know that you had, but that you've picked up, these knowledge, skills, and abilities, these KSAs, you've picked up over the course of your schooling, over the course of whatever you may have been doing. And so I challenge you all for, as you're looking into career fields, as you're looking into, transfers into particularly this space, challenge yourself to look outside of the athletic trainer, look outside of the strength and conditioning coach, look outside of the PT, unless those are, of course, your passions, and look more towards these holistic approaches towards wellness, and look towards applying that skill in a alternate manner in public health science as well. So I'll give a brief background on the wellness centers. And I did see there's some things in the chat, but I'll obviously wait to the end to address those. So the wellness centers, we have 35 around the globe. And really what they are, as we said before, these are platforms that are providing very, very basic level health behavior change through a standardized set of services that are available at every single 35 Army Wellness Center. And it's designed to produce this behavior change to make you a more well-rounded, healthy individual. It is not designed to make you into a super athlete. It's not designed to, focus on, for the military, focus on the top performers. It's designed for everyone to build your base of health literacy. That's our understanding of health information, our ability to make better informed decisions about our health. And that way it's a program that is lifelong. We don't want to see people walk in the wellness center and then walk out the wellness center never to return again. We're instilling in individuals a process of lifelong learning to be a healthier, happier, more well human being. And so it's not oh my gosh, I need this, I have strep throat and I need my antibiotics. It's designed in order to provide a continuous feedback for this healthy behavior change through our core programs that are standardized, so that if you move from one Army Wellness Center, or you PCS with your spouse if you're in the military, and you can continue services. And you could pick up right where you left off. And as was mentioned earlier, we did recently transition out of the Army into the Defense Health Agency. So we're at a DoD level, a Department of Defense level, which means hopefully in the near future that Navy installations and other installations will also see this program as well, be able to provide that more out into the community at installations that we never were able to reach before. And just a little bit of fun marketing that I really like. And again, this may resonate with some people, may not resonate if you haven't spent a long time in, around the sort of the DoD sphere, but collectively, and I always do it in tons and I need to always remember to do it in pounds, 871,000 pounds the AWCs over the course of their existence have helped individuals lose. And again, we're not a weight loss clinic. We are a clinic that's designed to help people be better and be healthier. And what's the number one thing people ask when they go to a trainer or a health professional? How do I lose weight? That's the trend in the population, and that's obviously what we're trying to combat when we're doing all of this. So 871,000 pounds, 435 tons. And, to me, the most striking sort of comparison to that weight is that if you've ever seen the C5 super galaxies, and if you haven't, you've probably seen them in movies. They're the absolute most enormous planes that the Air Force flies, and all of that weight could not fit into the C-35. So it's a lot of weight. We've helped change a lot of lives, and we change a lot of lives on every single day, not only within it, but through our community partnerships as well. We can go to the next slide. Perfect. All right, so I'll kind of double down on this one. I'll start it and then I'll hand it over to you, Teresa. But to sort of pivot back over to the staffing side, so the career opportunities within the wellness centers. Again, if you were fortunate enough to be able to hear Dr. Biden's opening remarks today, as many of you know, Dr. Biden, her initiative through the White House is the Joining Forces Initiative, which focuses on not only spousal employment, but it also focuses on health and wellness. And so, we're very thankful that we're able to satisfy two of the lines of efforts within the Joining Forces mission. And in fact, we're in conversation now to potentially have Dr. Biden visit a wellness center to sort of see that in action and see that not only are we helping create healthier, happier military families and families in general, but we're also helping through spousal employment deliver that other line of effort as well. So the positions that you see there, director, health educator, health promotion technician, those all have various GS equivalents. Directors are GS 12s typically, and then our health educators are closer to the GS 11 if they're a senior health educator. And then we also have GS 9s for health educators as well. And then your health promotion technicians are, GS 7s equivalent. However, a lot of those positions as of right now in our organization are contract positions. So, they have their carryover into, or their conversion over into civilian, but they're contract positions, health promotion technician, health educator, and director. And with those differing various levels of educational requirements and backgrounds, what we do require is, again, a bachelor's, master's degree in an allied health field. And for those, back to what I was saying before, an allied health field, even that term itself, and I know, I'm sure Teresa can speak to this as someone who sees tons and tons of resumes come through within allied health. It's a broad encompassing field. It truly is. Allied health can mean nurses. Allied health can mean kinesiology backgrounds, exercise science backgrounds. It's those individuals that did receive that, healthcare or, health-related, health science background. And so there's a lot of career fields that feed into this potential career opportunity. And so a background with health promotion, health education, that of course, again, comes with all of those, out there who are potentially personal trainers, or even behavioral health individuals. You got to do some health education through that. And public health professionals as well. There's an element of promotion and education in public health. Exercise science and kinesiology are typically the two major the two major sort of drivers of the career or the degree types that we see within the Wellness Center. And then the other requirement is an NCCA accredited certification in health and wellness. Now, NCCA, for those unfamiliar, is just the certifying agency for health and wellness related certification. So this includes your personal training certification. This includes your strength and conditioning certification. This includes, your certified athletic trainer certification, your PTA, physical therapy assistant credentials, all of those things. So it's broad encompassing. It's not just looking for those backgrounds in, strictly personal training. So I'll pause there. I'll turn it over to you, Teresa. And I'll be quiet, as is not my forte.
Thanks, Michael. And hopefully everyone can still hear me. So I did write a couple notes down. So if you see me looking down, I'm just looking at my notes to make sure I don't miss anything that I wanted to talk with you about today. So in addition to all of the great things that go on in the wellness centers, we have the privilege of actually helping to put the data behind everything that they're doing. And so our team is the team that actually assesses client experiences at the wellness centers, looks to see whether or not they're achieving their outcomes, looks to see how wellness centers across the enterprise are functioning. And we do that through a variety of assessment, evaluation, and data analysis activities. And so we do everything from collecting focus groups and surveys to, merging different data sets and data systems. We've moved recently into developing dashboards to help kind of visualize performance. So we're really that data side of the house. And we do that with a team of folks who comprise basically public health professionals. So public health scientists, program analysts, program evaluators, biostatisticians, health system specialists, et cetera. So most of our team, not all, has a graduate degree in public health or research psychology, sociology, or a related field. And we bring people in to our division through 4 common pathways. So those pathways include 1, just GS positions that are announced either on USA Jobs, or maybe we might even do something called a direct hire. So I don't know if you guys have heard about this today a little bit, but if you have highly technical or specialized positions, so right now public health is one of those, you can actually direct hire people into government service for particular positions as long as they have the requisite education and specialized experience and can demonstrate that. So that's really exciting because it helps us find professionals more quickly and get them into government service more quickly. And so all of the positions in my division are actually eligible for that direct hire authority, which is really exciting for me as a hiring manager. So we have the government positions. I am going to have a forthcoming GS 13 public health scientist position coming available. So that's something that we're very excited about. Most of our positions range in the 11 to 13 range. In addition, we also bring in people through something called Oak Ridge Institute of Science and Education postgraduate appointments. And so maybe you're just out of school and you don't have the specialized experience to come right into the government. That's a really common problem that some people have because the government positions are really based on your level of specialized experience. So this program is very exciting because if you've graduated within the last 5 years, it will bring you in and provide you a government mentor who will give you some of that experience on the job training, and that specialized experience that can be really relevant to either going into a government service position or maybe taking it to the civilian, outside of the government, into the private sector, whatever it might be. And so we have a series, I think we have 6 ORISE participants right now, which is really wonderful. And it's really mutually beneficial because we are able to have people come in who are recently graduated, they're kind of at the top of their field. And then also we learn from them, they learn from us, and it's really beneficial. So if you are looking for anything like that, that program, they do a lot of their recruiting through a program called Zintellect, Zintellect, Zintellect. And certainly you can email me if you're interested. We do have an opening in that as well. And then we also bring in people through contract. We do have a series of contract appointments. So as Dr. Jarka mentioned, a lot of times we, are able to bolster our capacity and bolster our ability to do our mission through contractual support. So we have several contractual positions that are essentially embedded within our division, and they work day to day with us, which we really appreciate. We are going to have a program evaluator position open with that as well. And then lastly, the 4th pathway that we bring people in through is something called the DoD SMART program. So this is a really wonderful program if you've not heard of it. It's one that if you're in a STEM field, so science, technology, engineering, or mathematics, is essentially a service for time type program where the DoD will actually fund your education. And then after you complete your education, the DoD will have you provide that same time in your job. So let's say you want to go into a master's program, you're really interested in biostats or something like that, biostatistics, and you want to maybe eventually work for the DoD will pay for you to go to school. And then the DoD will then say, okay, we paid for you for 2 years. You now owe us 2 years of service. And they do that through government positions. It's a highly, highly competitive program. As you can imagine, it's a great deal. But if it's something that you've never heard of, and you're interested, I highly recommend you look into it. Again, DoD SMART program for STEM majors. There's sponsoring agency, and then the student, comes in and works in government service. We currently in my division have 2 SMART students. And so these are all the different ways that we try to find the best available talent. I will also share with you that it's been a really exciting time for those of us who work in public health science and data and all of that, because in many ways our jobs are knowledge work, right? We don't necessarily need to be all physically in the exact same location. So COVID has really opened our eyes to the fact that a lot of this work can be done remotely. So for those of you who are military spouses and might be moving around quite a bit, several of the positions that I mentioned to you, in particular, some of the contract positions, our ORISE appointments, and even now some of our government positions are full-time remote, which is very, I think, like I said, very accommodating for folks like yourselves who may be, moving around. We do have people who are stationed at Aberdeen Proving Ground, which is where we are located, but that's something that, we work with. So that's really kind of what my spiel for today. I will share with you that in addition to evaluating the wellness centers, we also work on projects like the Health of the Army Family Report, which really helps to summarize the health status of our Army family members. We are anticipating that now that we are now tri-service, that report will become tri-service as well. We evaluate the Better Opportunities for Single Soldiers program, the Army's Financial Readiness program. We conduct a series of surveys for service members and families like yourselves to better understand your needs, your experiences, and how we can better serve you with our public health services and activities. So we don't just do wellness center evaluation. That's one of our big mission sets, but we also have several others across the public health realm. So thank you so much for being able to share with you today. I'm happy to answer any questions, connect you all with any resources, and thank you for your time and attention.
All right. So with that, let's go ahead and flip over into Q&A. So Nicole, if you want to go ahead and pull down the screen sharing, that would be awesome. I'm sure folks have plenty of questions. So once again, since we've had some new folks join the room, if you find your reactions button at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar, just hover over that or click on it. And there should be an option that says raise hand. If you want to come on camera or unmute yourself and ask your question directly to either of our fabulous presenters here today, we'd love to do that. But let's go ahead and get started with a question from the chat. So Ellen has been with us. Welcome, Ellen, for the previous session and this one. And her question is, how do you know your program is helping? What data are you using? And how do you measure the programs other than height, weight, physical fitness? How do you measure your effectiveness?
That
Michael,
is
do you
an
want me to
amazing.
take that one, or
Well, I was going to intro and then I was going to kick it to you, Teresa, because this is an amazing question. Because this actually cross-cuts exactly why Teresa and I work together. So as she mentioned, the Public Health Assessment Division evaluates so many things. In part, they evaluate the Army Wellness Center for strictly exactly what you're saying. And so, Teresa, I just needed to give you a little bit of an intro before you went off on it.
Yeah, no, this is such a great question. I wish more people ask questions like this. And I think as military spouses, I would highly encourage you to ask any program manager of programs and services that you go to this exact question. How do you know that you're working? How do you measure your success? How do you know that you're having your impact? So with the wellness centers in particular, we have a standardized data system of record called the Army Wellness Center Health and Wellness Tracker. And so this health and wellness tracker helps us collect and consolidate all of the data associated with our wellness centers. So across the enterprise, it's a standardized system that every health educator, that every encounter is documented, and then all of the services received are documented, and then all of we collect baseline measurements on folks who come in, and then we also, as they partake in follow-ups, we look at that as well. So we're able to see how do clients progress over time. We're able to see, are there particular groups of people who tend to experience success more frequently. We're able to see how does setting a goal in a particular area potentially affect whether or not the client's able to achieve those outcomes. We produce what we call quarterly program monitoring reports. Those really just summarize all of the activities that are going on at the wellness centers. And then we've done a series of outcome evaluations to make sure that the wellness centers are in fact achieving their outcomes. And just as a side note, they are, which is really good. They publish those findings in technical reports as well as in the peer-reviewed literature. So we look at all kinds of things, like we were saying, we look at everything from body fat percentage to VO2 max to stress levels, and we measure these using validated measurements. We look at lots of different anthropometric measures as well as some attitudinal measures using the validated measures, and like I said, report those out. So hope that answers your question. If you're interested in seeing those reports, I'm happy to send them to you. It's very nice light reading for a Wednesday afternoon.
All right, so Ellen says thank you and give you a thumbs up, so that's awesome. All right, again, we still have about 10 minutes for question and answer. So again, feel free to use that raised hand function if you'd like to unmute and ask your question directly, or we can keep going with stuff that's been dropped in the chat. So the next one is a little bit of a pivot, and it asks about human resources roles and if there's any human resources type positions or those type of other support functions for the actual practitioners in the wellness centers.
Yeah, so it's a yes and no question. Which so a human resources position directly, as in someone who is previous experience as an HR specialist, or someone who would work in HR within a company, et cetera, you wouldn't find the same level of HR involvement within the wellness center, because again, if we're hiring within the wellness center and it's a GS employee, you're going through the same systems as you are on USA Jobs, and those are obviously controlled by CPAC or civilian hiring authorities. However, I will say that the HR functions, sort of the soft skills of an HR individual, to include, ensuring that you're getting the right people in, ensuring that you're supervising appropriately. Those do often fall upon the GS-12 directors. Now, that can even go so far as to hiring people if the HR or if the GS-12 director has a bunch of GS staff. So if it's a contract staff, it's different, obviously. The director, the GS, the civilian is not directly hiring for positions in the wellness center. However, if the wellness center happens to have, and it really just does depend on location, happens to have GS staff, then oftentimes it does fall entirely on the GS-12 director to conduct the interviews, to create a panel if need be, to construct any tweaks on a validated PD or a standardized PD that we have, position description. So it depends a little on the location, but a lot of the soft skills are employed by the GS-12 directors, to the extent of potentially even hiring if those if it just happens to make sense at that particular location.
Okay.
And hey, Michael, and I would add too, really quickly, just to follow on to that too. So we've spent much of today really thinking about a specific program and initiative within DHA Public Health. That being said, the scope of public health practice across the Department of Defense is vast. And so this is one piece of that very big puzzle. And within our organization at large, we do have, through our business operations side of the house, we do actually have HR specialists who work, with our public health workforce as a whole. So that's something that I think is also important to recognize as well. Our servicing agency, DHA, does have, HR positions and things like that. I don't know, personally if they have any openings or anything like that, but just that we are serviced by HR folks within our agency. Over.
Perfect. Okay, so we've had a lot of chatter about GS levels, and that's just general schedule. I want to try not to have too many acronyms. They're addicting, and I work for the Forest Service, and we have our whole own set of things. But for anybody who's wondering, I did drop a link in the chat to the Office of Personnel Management, OPM's link about GS locality tables and all kinds of things that you can also read about what those different levels mean in terms of real world salary numbers. We have time for about one more question, and it's a good one from Monica, and it says, are any of your positions 100% remote?
So let me make sure I'm off of mute, and I am. So I'll speak for me first, and then Teresa, obviously your answer will be slightly different. So for my program, my headquarters staff, including myself and project officers, which oversee different regions of wellness centers, the headquarters staff for right now and in the foreseeable future is remote. That being said, we are based in and around the Aberdeen, Maryland area, especially with the way things are transitioning just in military health in general. It's easier for the headquarters staff to be a little bit closer to DC and the policymakers, et cetera. That being said, in the very near future, fingers crossed, I am hiring for, and thank you, Holly, for putting that in the chat, but I am hiring for a GS-13 project officer position that will be completely remote. Obviously within reason. It's always a little bit difficult if I have wellness centers in Korea, for example, but if you're a project officer in Korea and I have to talk to you, then someone's got to be up in the middle of the night, that type of thing. So those are all things that we work through. The actual positions within the wellness centers themselves, those are in-person positions because it's a physical location. But I'll turn it over to Teresa for her division.
Yeah, we have several that are fully remote. And so we have individuals working all across the country. We have two individuals working from Texas. We have some working from Florida. As Michael mentioned, I am personally located in the greater Baltimore area in Maryland, which is close to where we're headquartered. Primarily, same thing as my position. I do like to get down to DC here and there to the Pentagon if need be, et cetera. But yes, is the answer. at all in all of those categories that I mentioned. So the Smart Scholar program, the ORISE participants, the contract associates, and our GS staff, all of those are eligible for 100% remote work.
Perfect. Okay. I love that added flexibility. It's just amazing for people's work-life balance and their overall employment. So that's great. So with that, we are going to go ahead and call this particular segment of the Armed Forces Wellness Center breakout session closed. We're going to take about a 5-minute bio break. So feel free to step outside, reset, do some deep breathing, you know, pet the kid, feed the dog, I don't know, whatever you got going on at home. And if you would like to try out another session with another agency or organization, feel free to leave this meeting and jump on one of those. Otherwise, feel free to hang out with us. We will be back with more about the Armed Forces Wellness Center at the half-hour mark. Thanks so much, everybody. See you back in about 4 minutes. All right, welcome back, everybody. We'll give just about 30 seconds or so for folks to come back in the room or come back from their break. Get ready for our next fantastic presentation by the good folks from the Armed Forces Wellness Center. So with that, I will go ahead and hand it over to Joanna. Joanna, the floor is yours. Joanna, you're not muted, but you're very quiet. I'm still having trouble hearing you. I'm sorry. I cannot hear you. So a potential workaround, two options. One, you can call in with your cell phone and stay connected in this meeting and just call in with your cell phone and do audio that way, if you prefer that. Another option that you could do is totally log out of this and then come back in and we can see if that resets it. Either one will work. Sorry, folks, give us just a minute while we troubleshoot the audio issue. Thank you so much for your patience. All right, just stick with us, folks. We're still working on getting the audio sorted. We had tested it before this, so you know the tech forces at some point or another usually get cranky. So give us just a minute while we continue to get that sorted. Joanna, do you want to try your audio again through your computer?
Joanna, we still can't hear you. Over.
All right, Joanna, I just dropped the call-in information in this chat directly to you. So see if you can grab that. And Nicole, you should have it as well. Okay, I've got a thumbs up. Were you able to get in? Okay, I do see you in as a guest, a 443 number. Is that you? Yes. Okay, good. We're making progress. So I'll go ahead and give you ability to unmute, and you should be good to go. It might be *86 from your cell phone to unmute, but you should be able to unmute, Joanna. I'm
All
sorry,
right.
it's just *6.
I'm so sorry.
What you're going to want to do is turn your computer volume all the way down. Just turn off all your computer stuff because now you're joined on your phone.
All right. How does that sound now?
Perfect. Ha. All right. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Joanna. Thank you all of the participants for sticking with us. And
Oh.
Joanna, now the floor is yours.
I am so sorry. It was working earlier. So anyway, so let me introduce myself. I am Joanna Reagan. I am a registered dietitian. I was on active duty as a registered dietitian for 30 years, and I am lucky and blessed enough to be able to continue at Army Public Health Center. And in full disclosure, I work and collaborate with the Army Wellness Center, Armed Forces Wellness Center, but I'm not specifically part of the Army Wellness Center team, but I collaborate with them. So when we start talking about self-care is not selfish, it's one of the things that I hope that I get to inspire you today with kind of taking care of you. And as you are looking for that work-life balance, and as you're looking for, or how do I apply for new positions and move to new locations and take care of myself wherever you are in your current journey, this is where we kind of say, hey, we need to take a moment to kind of think about ourselves. Many of you, I'm sure, are very busy, kind of depending upon where you are in your career, whether or not that you have just finished college, you're new with with the military, a military spouse, your mid-career, your senior career, you're looking for new positions, you're getting close to retirement. Who knows? Each one of us has a different point in our journey when we start thinking about, hey, where am I and how can I take care of my health? And I'll even speak for myself as, while I was on active duty, there was requirements that I had to take care of, based on condition of employment. I had to pass the PT test, and now it's the Army Combat Fitness test. And now it's just taking care of me. So it's one of those things that, but along with helping to influence my family, my colleagues, my work group, and everybody else around me. So I think it's one of those things that we have to take a moment and figure out how can we recharge ourselves and take care of ourselves, but how can we help our family? How can we help our extended family? And how can we influence the colleagues that are around us, may it be in our personal lives or even in our work lives? And Nicole has already brought up this wheel. I love this wheel. This is a great wheel to kind of look at, making sure that you're balanced all the way around. So that's the thing that we're going to highlight today is kind of thinking about this wheel and where are the parts of this wheel that we could maybe adjust or change or think about a little bit differently in our process for today. So next slide. So we're on Zoom, and so I want you all to help participate with me. This is kind of one of those things that if you can think about over the last week, so this is Wednesday to last Wednesday, I want you to think about how many of you got at least 7 hours of sleep a night, or how many of you got at least 150 minutes of aerobic exercise, 2 strength training sessions at least a week over the last week. And then add to that, how many of you got at least 8 servings of fruits and vegetables in a day? Did anybody out there achieve that? And if you did, raise your hand in the chat function. And so I want to see if there's any superstars, any superheroes out there that hit all 3 of those targets. Anybody out there? Nicole, did you hit those targets over the last week? Nicole's usually pretty good.
I did. Hey. I had to work real hard, Joanna, real hard.
Erica did. So, hey, I saw a hand up, Erica. Hey, that's awesome. And I will tell you that these targets are not easy by any stretch of the imagination, because it takes work and it takes habit, and it takes, how do we adjust this? I'm a dietitian. And so you think, hey, I should be able to hit the last one, how to eat 8 servings of fruits and vegetables in a day. But I'll tell you, even for myself, that takes a lot of work. It takes meal prep, it takes planning, it takes, a lot of, things at the beginning of the week to try to get that going. So anyway, this is the taste to kind of say, hey, where are you at this point in time? And then we're going to highlight this a little bit more as we go through the rest of the slides, and see if there's maybe some sections that you can work on to help you become the best you that you can possibly do. And part of this, and the whole point of this, is really to highlight that small differences really do make a huge difference. So it's one of those things that as we talk through this, to kind of think about what are the areas that you could work on. So one is sleep. Sleep is one of those things that we take this for granted, but having enough sleep is something that really makes an immense difference on our overall performance, physical performance, and cognitive performance. And so when we start talking about this takes looking at our habits and what are the things that we can do to kind of adjust those habits. So next slide. So when we start thinking about, how do we adjust sleep? Any of you that have kids out there, or I know that getting enough sleep is a gigantic challenge. And anybody that's in school or busy or anything like that, it takes a lot to try to kind of say, hey, can I at least get 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night? And so it's trying to set regular bedtime and as much as possible, and trying to get your circadian rhythms to that point as much as possible. When we start thinking about motor vehicle accidents, 25% of motor vehicle accidents are aligned with drowsy driving and not getting enough sleep. So it's one of those things that it certainly can have a difference on our, as far as actual physical health, for accidents. But it also is aligned with our immune function, our susceptibility to diseases, a lot of other health-related things, weight management, diabetes, all those other things can also be aligned with sleep. So next slide. So we start thinking about what are the things that we can do to try to adjust for that. It's thinking about, hey, can I make some differences within my life, and can I try to adjust those if at all possible? We do know that sleep is aligned with increased chance of obesity, elevated lipids, increased chance of stroke, and increased chance of hypertension, myocardial infarctions, and even with diabetes. So trying to figure out what we could do when it comes to setting the environment, setting the routine, and figuring out if there's any distractors or anything in the way that prevents us from trying to stick to that routine as much as possible. A lot of times it's screen time. We get sucked into the TV, we get sucked into checking our emails or social media or whatever it is. And so trying to do a cutoff point at whatever point that might be. Nicole mentioned alcohol. Certainly it's one of those things, kind of knowing your tolerance points and trying to figure out, hey, if I want a glass of wine early enough in the day so that it doesn't interfere with my sleep schedule. And caffeine. Some people are very sensitive to caffeine, and so that definitely can also make a difference too. So just that can be one of our goals that we talk about and think about as we go forward. Next slide. So when we start also looking at activity, activity is one of the things that definitely, trying to think about how can we build this into our daily routine? How can we build this into our overall habits throughout the day? And part of this is particularly just trying to figure out how do we increase movement throughout our day. I really think it's great that we at least had 5-minute breaks in between in each one of these sessions. That gives us a chance just to get up and be able to do jumping jacks or be able to make sure that we can do some stretching exercises. What happens, particularly as we get into this telework world, we sit at our computers and we don't stretch or stay active as much as we should. When we start thinking about how do I stay active, and I'll speak for myself with this, we have to be creative and try to figure out what brings us joy and what can we do to stay active. And so active doesn't necessarily always mean, hey, I have to go to the gym to go work out. It can be playing sports. It can be going out for walks. It can be trying new things. It can be dancing. It can be whatever, some other things that bring you joy. But sometimes you have to mix it up and try different things to try to find out what are the things that you like and what it will enhance you to stay active, particularly when it comes to strength training, endurance, and agility. So next slide. So as we look at this, trying to figure out, hey, do I want to be brave and try something new? Hey, do I want to try a new class? Do I want to try, something that's new that's being offered in my local area? Is it through my MWR or facilities? Is it something in the community? Is it something that I want to try online? Is it a friend, a colleague, a family member that can be my battle buddy or can help me to stay on track with whatever that might be? I can speak for myself. I have recently, started doing a CrossFit class, and trying to stay active through that has been kind of my joy that I have found to do something different. And so, sometimes you kind of say, oh, I got to do something different. So whether or not it's with a walking group, a running group, being brave and kind of saying, hey, I'll try this for a new month. I'll try this for something different to try to figure out how to kind of mix it up and to try to build that into your day. Okay, so sometimes acknowledging that I'm in a rut, and so I have to try something else. And so that's where they're figuring out what might work for you, so that we can hit those activity goals. So next slide. When we start thinking about nutrition, hey, this is one of my favorite areas. I always like to kind of talk about this one. And then so a couple of things that we talk about with the performance triad, but even with U.S. dietary guidelines, is trying to figure out, kind of if there's a couple of simple goals. If it's just a couple of simple things that I'm going to ask you to kind of think about. One is to try to aim for 8 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. Okay, so that's where if you could fill half of your plate with fruits and or vegetables, that means that the other half of your plate is either with lean proteins or with bread, cereal, something along those lines. And so that's a great way to kind of look at it. And if you can kind of divide it up where you say, hey, mid-morning snack or a lunch or dinner, or how can I divide that up for the day, then you're going to get great sources of fiber. You're going to get really good sources of vitamins and minerals, and you're going to stay fueled. And so that's one of the things that that will certainly help you to try to get a variety of different things in your diet. Also, to try to make sure that you're staying well hydrated, and so that's with milk and water, so calcium-rich foods, and trying to make sure that you're getting enough water throughout the day. I don't know how many of you are getting at least 8 ounces of seafood during your week, but seafood is rich in the omega-3 fatty acids. And so that's for cognition, for brain power. And so we're trying to encourage people to try a variety of different seafood. So that can be salmon, it can be tilapia, it can be fresh, frozen tuna fish, anything along those lines that help very low in fats, but also great source, like I said, of omega-3s. And when we start looking at some of the other things that U.S. Dietary Guidelines talks about is trying to eat less sodium, less saturated fat, less added sugars throughout the whole day. Okay, so just trying to look at that overall well balance and trying to keep alcohol and caffeine kind of at moderation, if at all possible. So those are kind of just the simple targets that we want to aim for. And then, so then the next thing, back to personal development. I think this is kind of one of the things that, particularly with COVID, of trying to figure out what are the things that bring us joy, what are the things that that we need to explore, and that we need to try new things that that bring us joy. So whether or not it's trying to look for a new hobby or finding other things that that we may have had pre-COVID, now it's time to kind of bring them back and to try to reinstitute them into our lives for personal development. And personal development could be whether or not we're doing it professionally, but it also could mean you're just doing this for your own personal enjoyment. So something through the community college. For me, it's a cooking class. I like to take things at the community college for a cooking class just to try something new. I've done a couple of online webinars through the Smithsonian Institute. And I listen to Overdrive, for reading books, checking it out from my local library. Just because there's reaches a point where you kind of go, I can only listen to the news, so much. So getting into a good novel that I can hear a good book, and I can go out for a walk and I can listen to the book at the same time. So being creative and figuring out where are new things that can bring you personal joy. I will also say that with personal development, sometimes trying to figure out with the work part of it and maybe the school part of it, of figuring out where your boundaries are and letting your friends and your colleagues know, hey, I'm off the clock. It's time for me to go out and do something that's me time. And you could do that with your family. You can do that with your friends, and just kind of saying, hey, I need this moment or I need this hour or whatever this time of day is to be able to do something that is good for me. And so that's where we say, taking time for either prayer or meditation or journaling or whatever that calming spirit is that helps you to kind of reset is so important. We need that in our day to kind of set our day at the beginning of the day or the end of the day, or kind of whatever works for you. We know that having the right work-life balance really makes a difference on our immune system and trying to stay healthy. So it's something that's so important. Next slide. So when we start talking about surroundings, this is really one of the things that sometimes we don't. It wasn't until I got into public health that I really kind of thought about this. And part of this is changing the environment of either your home or your office or your school or wherever it is. And when we say that, it means healthy choice is the easy choice. So at home, if my goal is to try to get 8 servings of fruits and vegetables in, on my kitchen counters, I have a big fruit bowl. I have fruit. I have my veggies right out there on the counter, so that way I can grab it for lunch. I can grab it for snacks. I can have it right there. I can have it at my desk. So I have a snack. I kind of go, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's time for a snack. So I can have that right there. It's the same thing, in the office environment, having healthy snacks that are available. Also that way I'm not going to the vending machine. I'm not having to forage through the neighbor's candy jar and find something that I can eat. So setting that stage so that you're proactive versus reactive. I will also say that leadership matters. If your friends and colleagues that are around you who are doing healthy things and they're influencing you to do healthy things, then that makes a huge difference. How many of you are standing up during this call? As you're listening in, are you standing and walking around, or you're staying active, you can do stretches, you can do other things sometimes while we're on these video calls, just to be able to get movement into our day. And so that's something that we can be proactive with. So it's even having walking meetings. If you've ever heard of a walking meeting, sometimes that can be some of your most effective brainstorming sessions. If you and your boss, you're supposed to have a meeting, or, your advisor or whoever it is that says, hey, we need to, do your quarterly counseling or your monthly counseling or whatever it is, say, hey, let's go walking and we can do this. You don't actually physically have to be there. You could be doing it on a telephone, but you can get two things accomplished at the exact same time. So trying to adjust your surroundings and build that into your day, if at all possible. So we like to encourage that as much as possible. So next slide. The emotional part of the wheel, I think Nicole's kind of touched on this, but I will tell you that this is something that is incredibly powerful. And I think if nothing else that COVID has taught us is that, having real friends, true friends, to share what's going on with us makes us, so much healthier. Or she talked about the blue zones and, and making sure that that's how, centenarians were able to live to 100 years old. And what one of the blue zones found is that having at least 5 people within your circle that you can talk to, through tough times, good times, gossip times, whatever it is, really helps you to express what's going on. And so whether or not it's girlfriends, lifelong friends, a lunch bunch, a breakfast bunch, colleagues, whatever that is, taking time to be able to do that. And then spiritual is one of those things that it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go to church, but finding how do we continue that growth through connection. And so the spiritual part of this is, how do I connect through my community, through creation, through my own personal conscience, and through the Creator, and whatever your belief is with the Creator, or how do you stay grounded, and then how do you continue with that connection is probably the most important thing. And for some folks, it is finding your church family, and other folks, it is through other types of meaning. And certainly through this, it can mean if you have that family or that connection of folks that you get together with on a weekly basis, they can help you through challenging times or through joyful times or whatever it might be. But please know, through the military, there are lots of resources of folks that you can reach to, particularly if you're finding times of challenge. And so that's our chaplains, and there's family life chaplains. There is also military family life programs, the MFLEX. Military One Source does free counseling. And then for anybody that has some serious challenges, then that's also through the TAPS program, and that's the telephone number that's on the slide. So know that the spiritual part is available, certainly, for you to kind of build on. And then family, social, that kind of ties in with one of our other elements. But as we talk about family and social, staying connected with our family members, those are the things that, reaching out, family can be so important. And so reaching out to long lost cousins or brothers and sisters, or mothers, fathers, folks that we don't talk to on a regular basis, trying to make sure we stay in relationships with them, because part of that just, helps us to stay on track. So when we start talking about self-care is not selfish, we want to make sure that you're taking care of you. And part of that is really making sure you're authentic. And sometimes that you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable. Sometimes letting your guard down and letting your friends or your colleagues or your family kind of know what's really going on with you. Maybe you're having, issues with your kids or your spouse or, whatever it is, trying to figure out how to let them in, and then they can help you through that difficult time. Sometimes you just need a sounding board. Sometimes you just need a helpful ear that is in a safe zone. And so we need to allow people to be in our inner space. That's something that's so important. And so we have to build that resilient spirit and be able to just to laugh and have a good time. Hopefully each one of you has a couple of friends that you can call that they will just give you the best belly laughter. When you start thinking about who are the friends that no matter who you call, by the time you're done with the telephone call, they will just be having you laughing just because, and what a wonderful reset if you can have that person that can help you to get through that. So as we go through this, I want you to really kind of think about, I always think of October as kind of like the perfect time to do that reset. And we start thinking about what are my health goals as I go into the holiday season and as we go into November, December, into January. And so whether or not that you want to work on your sleep, whether or not that you want to work on nutrition or activity or some of the other things that we talked about, picking out one or two of those specific goals that might help you to get a little closer into your wellness goals, to be the best you that you can be. And then work on that one. It takes at least 6 weeks before we get into really good habits. So that should take us close to Christmas. And then Christmas is kind of like there's a 2-week zone in there where we just want to maintain. And then after that, then we kind of get back into January and we can kind of really get back on track again. So think about how those things can help you as you go forward over the fall and into the winter. So just want to open the floor for any questions that you might have as we start thinking about our wellness goals over the next couple of months.
All right, thank you so much, Joanna. So Nicole, if you want to go ahead and pull down the slides, that would be great. And participants, this is all you. So if you have a question for Joanna or something she said really resonated with you, comments, questions, anything that you would like for her to talk more about in her role, please feel free to drop those in the chat. Or if you hover over the reactions button in the Zoom toolbar and click on that, you'll see something that says raise hand, and I will go ahead and unmute you and you can turn on your video and talk with Joanna directly. So whichever you prefer. I'll give folks just a minute to go ahead and do that. And so far, Joanna, we don't have any questions as of yet, but we'll give it just a minute more before we wrap up this segment and head to break. So don't be shy, folks. I know you probably have.
Let me just ask the group: is anybody willing to share any goals or anything that they want to work on over, let's say, the next 6 weeks? That they want to try to focus in on and try to adjust their habits and see if there's anything that they could say, okay, this is one of the ones I'm going to really kind of take to heart and see what I can do. Nobody's brave. That's okay.
That's all right. So we can go ahead and, there is a question that came in from Shelby. Hi, Shelby, welcome. It says RD, and I'm sorry, I don't work in health services, so I maybe registered dietitian. I'm sorry, I don't know all the acronyms. Okay, and she's currently working in an office, but with orders. Do you have suggestions for keeping my current career going?
As far as a registered dietitian, there's kind of a variety of different job opportunities. There's certainly within the medical treatment facilities through the military, there is registered dietitian positions, usually GS-11, GS-12 positions that are open to USA jobs. Also, there's registered dietitian positions that are open through Holistic Health and Fitness if you have a background in performance nutrition. So those are positions that are being actively advertised, at least through the Army. If you're interested in doing any performance nutrition and type of direct jobs, something along those lines. I don't know if I answered your question or if that's kind of something that you're looking for, if it's clinical in the medical treatment facilities, or maybe depending upon what location of where you are.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's go ahead and call it there. And Shelby says, thank you so much. So if you have any closing thoughts, then we'll go ahead and close this segment. Stay connected to the meeting if you want to hear our fourth and final session from the Armed Forces Wellness Center folks about career opportunities and more specifics about that coming up after the break. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Joanna, for close on your segment before we head to break.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for joining us.
Okay, perfect. So with that, we will go ahead and pivot to break. We will be back at 15:15, I believe, is when we start up again. So go ahead and enjoy the next 8 minutes or so. Again, walk away from your computer, put your iPhone down, stay connected, but go do something else somewhere else, reset, and join us back in about 8 minutes. Thanks so much, y'all. All right, all right. Welcome back, everybody. I see that we are back on time. We have a great crew. Oh, look at, they're all getting cozy together. Who doesn't love that, right? Ooh, I have good feelings about this. This is going to be a strong way to close out the day. Can I get a quick audio test?
Test.
Okay.
Testing.
Yes, sounds good, looks good. I'm not even going to do introductions. I'm just going to let you take it away. Over to you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so thank you again for having us here today. We're so excited. My name is Kelly. I'm one of the health educators here at the Army Wellness Center. I'll let my coworkers introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Danielle. I'm one of the educators here as well.
And I'm Amber. Awesome. Well, thank you again for being here. This is so exciting. We're going to talk about how to stay fit home and away, aka the office. Okay. We're going to talk about benefits, barriers to physical activity. We're going to discuss the components of an exercise session because that makes it more purposeful and we see better results that way. We're going to identify different types of equipment and exercises you can use at home for different workouts or in the office. And not the standard equipment you think about. There's different things you can use that will really help add to your workouts at home if you're looking for that extra little oomph, okay? And then last but not least, we're gonna develop a plan for a home workout, looking at all the aspects of fitness, okay? So not only do we help to comprise this fitness routine, we run through one at the end with you, a chair yoga.
Nicole, we lost your audio.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, you're back. We lost your audio for just a little bit there.
Oh, okay. Well, hello, I'm back. So this 49.2% is the percent of adults who meet the guidelines for aerobic physical activity. We'll go over that, but the guidelines is 150 minutes a week of moderate physical activity, or on the flip side, you could do 75 minutes a week of vigorous aerobic activity. So you do have different aspects of that. So that's cardio recommendations. Let's look at the muscular strength activities. So this percentage is a lot lower than the first one. I think it's because a lot of people are easy to do the cardio portion because it's easy. You run, you go, you bike, you go. But the strengthening portion, muscle resistance training, is a little trickier to figure out how to compile your routine together. So we'll go over that to make it hopefully less intimidating. Because as we know, there's so many benefits to exercise, so many benefits. So here, I tell people not to even look at the physical benefits. We know the physical benefits. I like just really showcasing the other benefits that I don't think people associate with regular exercise. And when I say regular exercise, I'm not saying we need to be in the gym for 2 hours a day. I'm saying every day, 15, 20 minutes, some type of movement is beneficial, okay? Some things I want to point out is increased feeling of self-worth. That's amazing. That is, that's so beneficial that I think everyone would strive for that. Lower tension, lower anger, increased family time. That's fabulous. And then mental, increasing your relaxation, and you also sleep better if you exercise throughout the day. Be careful on that though. Don't exercise too late in the day because that could energize you and then we get the opposite effect. We're not going to sleep, okay? So with that being said, we know the benefits of physical activity. Why do we think, that we tend to not adhere to those? Well, we hear a lot of barriers. We do not call them excuses. They are barriers because we perceive them to be in our way to reach our goals. So these are some different barriers that we do hear, okay? But these are the positives. Our slide kind of flipped over, okay? So things to do to revamp your rituals. So saying you don't have time, revamp your rituals to prioritize exercise. If you don't have any equipment, that new positive light is incorporate body weight exercises. We want to, if your barrier is space, maybe making your space more intentional or finding a space for you to do your fitness within. Too busy, that one's unplug or incorporate activity into your household tasks. So if you're having a busy day, which happens, we encourage you to ramp up your household chores. We encourage you to garden, do something active when you get home for the day. And then if you have low energy, plan for those high energy times of the day. I know myself, morning is the best time to work out, and I have the most energy. So for me to be successful with consistency, that's how I would plan it if it were for me AM workouts. So we've talked about the benefits of exercise. Let's talk about those components we touched on. Danielle will go over those with us.
All right, so this is my activity pyramid here. And a little bit of what Kelly kind of touched on is we want to kind of limit that inactivity throughout the day. So that's just going to be mostly kind of sitting, or if you're at your office and just sitting, or working and driving and all that stuff. We want to try and limit that inactivity and go more so for that lifestyle activity, right? And so that's where you're going to get your most amount of calories that you're kind of burning throughout the day. So again, that's like household chores, like cooking, cleaning, walking your dog, playing with your kids, grocery shopping, that type of stuff. Just incorporating more movement throughout the day. Yes, our aerobic activity and our strengthening and flexibility are very important as well. But honestly, just that lifestyle stuff, getting up and just moving is going to be your biggest portion of where you can actually, get more activity in throughout your day. So we want to make sure we have more of that and less of that inactivity. So there are some equipment that you can use at home, right? And so you can use like laundry jugs, you can even use like water jugs or milk jugs, and you can fill those guys up with sand to even make it heavier there. You can use a chair, you can use resistance bands, and all this stuff can range from very inexpensive to, pretty expensive there, right? So if you have the funds and you can get equipment, like TRX equipment is great, getting a treadmill, an elliptical, you can even just get like dumbbells from Amazon or something along those lines. And again, if you can't afford any of that, or if you don't even have the space for it, resistance bands are great. And so are those like laundry jugs, and so are those milk jugs as well. So using equipment that you already have, or if you have the resources, using that as well. You can even use your kit as equipment. Okay. Yeah. That's a really good one to use too. And they will grow with you, right, as you get stronger. So you can utilize equipment within your home.
Or fur babies.
Fur babies too. Yeah, fur babies too. Yep. So the first component of exercise is going to be your warm up. You want to make sure you do this every single time before you do any sort of physical activity. So this is going to be the first 5 to 10 minutes, and it's going to be your dynamic exercises. So this is moving and not staying static there. So some of the good ones are marching in place. You can do knees to elbows, heels to butt, arm circles, and leg swings. Again, it's just going to be continuously moving and not doing that static stretches. And again, for 5 to 10 minutes is the first thing that you want to do. So the next thing is going to be cardiovascular training, right? And so as Kelly had mentioned, it's going to be 150 minutes of moderate or 75 minutes of vigorous. And this can be kind of anything that you can come up with, whether it's kicking the soccer ball around, jumping on a trampoline, using a jump rope, going for a bike ride, going for a walk, even using like apps to, play a fitness program or something along those lines. So you can do any of that. And all of this you can kind of do at home as well. Like those videos you can get on YouTube are great to use. And those guys will kind of get you that cardiovascular training. You don't really need too much space for that, or honestly any equipment for that either. So making sure we get in that cardiovascular training, and that's going to be your second component of an exercise plan. So the next is going to be our strength training. And again, what Kelly had mentioned, we want to do at least 2 or more days per week of your major muscle groups there. So hitting all of those big ones there. And again, you can use resistance bands. You can even just use body weight for a lot of this stuff as well. On the screen, you have a watermelon. Your kid is great, again, for this one, and your fur babies are great for doing this as well. So that's going to be the next component. And if you're trying to, move up in weight, again, you can go to adding sand into things, or just kind of increasing it or increasing the reps, something along those lines. So making sure that we're including strength training throughout our workout too. So then the absolute last thing that you're going to do for your workout is going to be your cool down. And we want to make sure we don't skip this, right? Because we want to make sure we bring our heart rate down from everything that we just did. We also want to make sure that we are stretching the muscles that we just used. So we're making sure that we're doing this at least 2 to 3 days per week. And this should be 5 to 10 minutes after you're exercising. And honestly, you need to be holding those stretches for 30 to 60 seconds, a couple of times through to kind of get the real benefits of it. So making sure we have all of those components of every exercise. So now we're going to move over to Amber, and she's going to talk about technology, and then we're going to go through a short little yoga with you.
Okay, guys, so I know Danielle already mentioned a few of these apps when speaking about exercise components. I do want to make sure that you do know that there are free resources out there. One of my favorite ones is called Fit On. Another good one is Fitness Blender, as well as Swerk It. So those give you exercise plans that you can follow, and they are range from strength training to aerobic fitness, even some yoga as well. So make sure you use that technology that is out there. Don't feel like you have to go alone. And then YouTube is a really great resource as well. I personally use a yoga frame that is on there. So make sure that you don't downplay some of those technology resources that are free out there. Some other more elevated resources, if you want to kind of get into the nuts and bolts of exercise, understand what types of muscle groups that you're working on, or maybe if you have a specific area that you're trying to strengthen in particular, then ACE Fitness, XREX, Performance Triad, those have a little bit more research-based information that you can use to give you some information about exercise as well. So
they'll also show you the like how to do proper form for things as well.
Yes, and that's something to remember as well. I know we kind of quickly touched on the components of exercise, but make sure, especially when you're in your strength training workouts, that you are having proper form. You don't want to get an injury, and you do want to make the most of that workout in order to see those results. So thinking about everything that you learned today in this short class about exercise, how you can kind of better apply it to your daily routine, maybe something that you can do at home or at the office as a part of your day. Think about, what is one small thing that you can start doing? So I want you to make it specific, put some sort of measuring tool on it, make sure that you can attain it. It should have some sort of, time-bound aspect to it. So a simple, SMART goal would be, I'm going to walk twice a week for 20 minutes. Or name any kind of workout. It's just kind of one small change that you can start doing. And it's really about, something that you can do consistently. So with that being said, there was some workouts that we gave you as a part of your handouts. So there was a body weight one that you can use for any body weight ideas. And that's more of like a HIIT workout that you can kind of choose different circuit training aspects with body weight, or just kind of a singular body weight that you can do kind of 10 sets of 4 for a more traditional weight training. And now we want to show you something that you can do at your office or at your home in order to just feel better, provide you some energy, and also get a little of the kinks out, because we sit a lot during the day, a lot during the office. So Danielle is going to demonstrate some office yoga. Okay, so Danielle, I want you to sit up straight, both feet on the floor. Make sure that you are grounded in your chair. And guys, I'm not just doing this for Danielle's benefit. I want you to practice with me, okay? So sit up straight in your chair, and then I want you to lift your arms behind you and hold it in that position. Lift a little higher with your exhale, push out your chest, sit up tall, keep breathing. And then ideally you would hold that for 20 seconds, but I'm going to kind of go through these exercises a little quicker. So go ahead and relax, release that. The next exercise, I want you to put your left knee over your right, sit up straight, put your left arm down, raise your right arm up above your head, sit up straight, reach forward. Great, and you would do that on the opposite side as well. And then another one would be crossing your left leg over your right again. Make sure that ankle is on top of your knee there, just like that. Reach both hands this time up. Stretch that out, breathing. And then go ahead and relax. Another one from that would be knee on the ankle again and leaning forward. This one is a really good stretch that you need to do just to release those back muscles. And again, you're breathing the whole time during these stretches. Okay, and release that. Well, that is about all the time that we have today. I think we covered a good bit here, the components of a workout plan, help you understand that you can really exercise anywhere. You don't need any equipment or very minimal equipment, such as a resistance band or something that's a little heavier around your house. So just know that you can really work out anywhere you are, whether that be at home, if you're on the go, or even in the office. So thank you so much for joining us today. I hope this was helpful for you. And just remember, it's all about those small changes that you make in your day-to-day routine that make you just a little bit healthier. So thank you guys.
All right, thank you so much. We don't have very many folks in our participants live, and that's okay, but Shelby, if you have something, feel free to ask it. So I have a question for folks that might be watching this after the fact, you know, in the coming days and weeks. And that's really about each of y'all's lived experience, from how you got into your current job, kind of your career path, if you will, in the past couple of years, and how you ended up at the Armed Forces Wellness Center. So however you want to do that down the line, just a little bit more about your story and career path would be great.
Yeah, sure. So my background is in sports medicine. So I was an athletic trainer for 5 years, and then kind of worked in physical therapy clinics. And then once I became a military spouse, it was hard to keep that kind of job. So I was introduced to the wellness centers back in 2015 at our first duty station as a military couple. And since then, as we moved around, I have been able to work at the wellness centers. So I really love their mission. I'm able to, keep that passion of health and wellness, and then broaden it a little bit as well. So definitely kind of had to shift gears a little bit and maybe go on outside of my normal scope of practice once I became a military spouse.
Mm-hmm. So my background is in dietetics, and I'm also a registered dietitian. I started at the wellness centers over in Korea in 2020. I helped open up and run the wellness center over in Camp Walker, Daegu. So that's kind of how I got started within the wellness centers. And honestly, all of this is 100% my realm, being nutrition and being a dietitian here. So, and then I ended up coming back to this area, and now I'm working here. So,
well, I found the wellness centers when my hometown is near Fort Riley in Kansas. And so they had a job opening. I got out of school, my undergrad's in kinesiology, my master's in nutrition and human performance. And I stumbled upon that gym and got the job. And I've kind of floated around in the health and fitness field, and now coming back to the wellness centers since they opened one. We've only been open a year and a half now. Mm-hmm. So very lucky to have the opportunity to come back, because being within the military community is very special, and it's great to hone in on that population. So there's a special, being married to an active duty soldier at one time, it's definitely challenging. So health and wellness does go on the back burner for some people. So we really help bring that forward to them to improve family life. Mm-hmm. That's about it for us, I believe.
That's awesome. And just one more.
Yeah.
What piece of advice, if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self starting this journey, being a military spouse or being in the military yourself, what one piece of advice would you give starting this this career journey?
I think not to hold on to one specific career avenue. Mm-hmm. That all of your experiences, whether they're paid experiences or not, are absolutely valuable. Mm-hmm. I was a volunteer. I taught Red Cross classes. I worked as a chiropractic assistant, physical therapy assistant, and then, this wellness center position. But all of those components help mold me into where I am today. So don't discount any type of experience. Don't get frustrated if you don't feel like you're in the exact mode, because it is, it's all different seasons of life, and all of it is valuable to shaping you into the person that you're, supposed to be. And you're, exactly where you are supposed to be in different times. So definitely make the most of every experience and opportunity that you have.
So, piling on that a little bit, because that would be something that I would say as well, but also like recognizing that those experiences build relationships with people. So then that way you kind of have like those, and if you're building really great relationships, you have those people in, your pocket. If you move duty stations or whatever it may be, you might know people at those duty stations that can get you into places that you want to get into. So recognizing that everybody that you meet is networking and, making sure that you're making friends with as many people as you can, because that really will help you. And all of those weird avenues that you get into as a military spouse, I promise they will pay off in the back end.
And then know that I just think the military community is so special, because a military spouse, you don't know about the challenges until you're a military spouse. So know that you're valid in your challenges, know that you're valid in, what you're experiencing within that move or duty station. Okay. And you are providing value to your soldier by being the support system as well. So that is just important. I think a lot of people don't emphasize that enough. It's very important and very different, and you don't know until you know.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you all so much for playing along and answering some of those questions and just sharing a little bit about your own lived experience. I'm a storyteller in my professional career, and I believe that stories need to be told because they're powerful and they can enrich not only our own experience, but the journeys of others around us. So thank you so much for helping tell your stories as well. With that, we are going to go ahead and wrap up our session today. So I am going to go ahead and stop recording